In this video, we're going to be talking about the 5 cons of living in Canarsie, Brooklyn. So if you'd like to learn more, stay tuned. Now, one of the cons of living in Canarsie is in fact the L train. Now, there are many different forms of transportation, public transportation. In Canarsie, there's access to multiple buses, and these buses can take you to access different train systems. But the main train line that most residents in Canarsie use is the L train. Given that they have all dependent on the L train, if the L train were to go down, if the L train were to be under construction, most residents in Canarsie would be displaced. Another downside about living in Canarsie is that some homes in Canarsie have a propensity to flooding. Now, I lived in 3 different apartments in Canarsie, and 2 out of the 3 had a propensity to flooding. So you have to remember though that Canarsie sits right next to Jamaica Bay. So if we ever have a huge storm, which we did under Sandy, a lot of those homes actually flooded out. Also, Canarsie is built on marshland. So the entire community was actually developed on top of marshland. This could be another reason why some homes have a propensity to flood in Canarsie. Another downside about living in Canarsie is the crime rate. Now, I have to hold this and say this with a grain of salt because I hold Canarsie near and dear to my heart. I lived there for 6 years. I love the community. I think the community has some really genuine, loving people who've lived there for a long time. And I think that it's unfortunate that we have, or that it has, bad actors who do things within the community that then affects the reputation of the community and affects the reputation of everyone who lives within the community and really loves living in that community. So it's unfortunate that the crime rate in Canarsie seems to have been increasing. And it's not just any crime, it's the heinous crimes, it's the murders, the shootings. Towards the latter end of my living in Canarsie, I remember reading about a Black woman who was dismembered in the local park. There was an 8-year-old girl who was shot, and the bullet grazed her shoulder on her way home from school. Now, there are 2 different sides of Canarsie, in my opinion. The side that drew me to Canarsie is actually the side that is around East 101 and Avenue M. When you look at those homes, they're all detached. They all have well-manicured lawns. It doesn't feel like Brooklyn. It actually, if you drive through that area, it feels like Long Island, which is where I grew up. So I remember when I saw those homes, I kind of felt like, wow, I've never seen this in Brooklyn. I want to live here because I feel like I'm right at home. When you go out of that area in Canarsie, that suburban feel, and you move it over to the denser parts of Canarsie around East 80th, which I've also lived in, those areas I think are where most of the crimes are committed. Now, obviously, when you have more people packed closely together, there's more chances of crimes being committed. So I just want to add that nugget of information here to say, yes, crime in Canarsie as a community is up, but it really does depend on where you are in Canarsie. All areas of Canarsie are not the same. Another downside about living in Canarsie, depending on where you are, it's not everywhere, but depending on where you are, you might be hearing a lot of loud music. You might hear loud music if you're walking to the store. You might hear loud music when you're sitting in the comfort of your own home and trying to go to bed at night. So if you're someone who does not appreciate music, if you're not a dancer, if you're not someone who can kind of express themselves through listening to loud music, all sorts of music, then Canarsie may not be the place for you. Another downside about living in Canarsie is the amount of time it takes you to get into the city. Now, as I mentioned, there are many forms of transportation to get you out of Canarsie, from bus to train to an express bus that takes you directly to Midtown. But any way you slice it, you're going to be on some form of public transportation for at least 60 minutes. And this is actually a downside because if you live further out, if you live in Long Island, there are some methods of transportation that can actually get you into the city in half an hour. So it's unfortunate, but if you live in Canarsie and you do work in the city, or you work in Queens, or you work in the Bronx, you will be using public transportation to get to work, and you will likely be spending a great deal of your time on public transportation. All right, that sums up for this video about the cons of living in Canarsie. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you in the next one.